The parable of the unforgiving servant is one of the well-known teachings of Jesus Christ, found in the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew 18 verses 21 to 35. It illustrates the critical importance of forgiveness and mercy in our relationships with others. The parable's story. One day, the disciple Peter asked Jesus how many times he should forgive someone who wronged him. Peter suggested forgiving up to 7 times, which was considered generous in that culture. But Jesus replied, not 7 times, but 70 times 7, symbolizing limitless forgiveness. Jesus then told this parable. A king decided to settle accounts with his servants. One servant owed him an astronomical debt, 10,000 talents, an impossible sum to repay. The king ordered the servant, his family, and all his possessions to be sold to recover the debt. Desperate, the servant fell to his knees, begging for patience and promising to repay. Moved with compassion, the king forgave the entire debt. Later, that same servant found a fellow servant who owed him 100 denarii, a far smaller amount. He grabbed him by the throat and demanded repayment. Though the man pleaded for mercy, the first servant refused and had him thrown into prison. When other servants witnessed this, they reported it to the king. Enraged by the servant's hypocrisy, receiving mercy but denying it to others, the king summoned him and declared, "You should have shown mercy to your fellow servant, just as I showed mercy to you." The king then reinstated the original debt and handed him over to jailers. Jesus concluded, "This is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart." Key themes. God's immeasurable grace. The king represents God, who forgives debts, sins, we could never repay. The hyperbole of 10,000 talents underscores the boundlessness of divine mercy. Reflecting God's mercy. The parable contrasts 2 debts, exposing the absurdity of withholding forgiveness after receiving grace. Forgiveness isn't transactional, it reflects God's character, Ephesians 4 verse 32. Consequences of unforgiveness. The servant's fate symbolizes spiritual peril. Jesus warns, holding grudges contradicts the gospel's core. Forgiveness as a heart posture. Jesus stresses forgiving from the heart, v. 35, not as a grudging obligation but a genuine inner transformation. Application. Forgive limitlessly, stop counting offenses. Model God's unconditional mercy. Reject hypocrisy, recognize the hypocrisy of accepting grace while denying it to others. Community accountability. The other servant's outrage highlights the role of confronting injustice. Heart transformation. Forgiveness is not mere action but a spirit-led renewal of the heart. Important note, forgiveness doesn't excuse evil but entrusts justice to God, Romans 12 verse 19. It's often a process, not always instant, but essential for spiritual freedom. The lesson. This parable emphasizes that God's forgiveness toward us infinitely outweighs anything we're asked to forgive in others. It teaches that forgiveness isn't optional, it's a necessity for those who seek God's mercy. By refusing to forgive, we risk severing ourselves from the very grace we've received.